Dropping out of school is a high risk factor for delinquency. In the United States, dropout rates are an issue of high importance. 1 out of 5 students drops out before graduation. Today, nearly 5 million 18 to 24-year-olds lacks a high school diploma. The United States ranks 20th out of 28 industrialized democracies on high school graduation rates. Students tend to drop out for 4 reasons, which are frequently interrelated. These reasons are academic failure, a disinterest in school, which often leads to poor attendance, problematic behavior inside or outside the school setting that interferes with learning, and life events such as getting a job, becoming pregnant, or caring for an ill family member. Early school failures can also set into motion a cascade of later life events and disadvantages in early adulthood, which then in turn affects socioeconomic status, attainment in later life. High school dropouts will earn $200,000 less than high school graduate and $800,000 less than college graduates. Dropouts also comprise nearly half of our prisons' population, and dropouts comprise nearly half of all heads of households on welfare. Dropping out of school has serious consequences for an adolescent that includes greater difficulty in gaining employment and lowered earnings, peer relationships, substance abuse, and delinquent behaviors. Some of the evidence exists that the effects of dropping out can affect the individual for the duration of his or her life. Students have certain rights associated with school attendance. The school's authority over students comes from the concept of in loco parentis and also state enabling statutes. The concept of in loco parentis is that an entity is given the authority over the child. The entity has the same rights, duties, and responsibilities of the parent because they are overseeing the child. At the same time, the child is given what's known as due process, meaning that if their right to attend school is to be suspended, that they get notice and an opportunity to be heard in the matter. The big question that arises, though, is what is the level of disobedience that justifies suspension or expulsion? Schools are allowed to enforce dress codes, grooming expectations, and also to some extent can limit a child's ability to engage in free speech. Symbolic speech tends to be a protected area under the First Amendment, though its protections do not extend quite as far in the school setting as it does in the general public. Hair and dress codes tend to be considered in light of the right to privacy constitutional protections, but again, the schools may enforce reasonable dress and grooming codes. Public schools cannot enforce rules against the wearing of slacks, dungarees, or hair falling loosely about the shoulders. School searches have become more frequent in the past several decades, too, due to the higher incidence of weapons and drugs being found on school properties. In 1990, the Gun-Free School Zones Act, and police started enforcing it. Drug-free zones also include usually the school property and a 1,000-foot radius around it. Alabama has the most aggressive of these laws, enforcing a 3-mile radius around the schools. The use of drug-sniffing dogs, breathalyzers, hidden video cameras, and routine school searches of students' pockets, purses, school lockers, desks, and vehicles on school property is on the increase. Sometimes the school officials conduct the searches, and other times the police are called to conduct them. Schools are not required to get warrants to search students or their lockers or vehicles. The legality of the search depends on its reasonableness and considers the scope of the search in regards to whether it is reasonable or not. What is taken into account in determining the reasonableness is the student's gender and age and the student's behavior at the time of the search. This ruling has been in effect since 1985 and comes out of the New Jersey versus TLO decision in the United States Supreme Court. Random drug testing policies also were upheld in 1995, and the right to drug test students that were in extracurricular activities was upheld in 2002 by the United States Supreme Court.